So, Spider-Man is about to turn 60 years old, and for a dude who's about to qualify for a senior's discount, he has a surprising amount of tricks still up his sleeve. There are many powers that the spider bite granted young Petey, but those usual suspects, they're old news.
Crap, mega crap.
In the over half century the character's been around, Peter's shown some weird and unusual abilities. Just how weird? Well, let's go over 15 of them. Recently, the wall crawler has been everywhere. The Marvel Cinematic Universe, the year 2099, heck, he even found his way into Fortnite, but I mean honestly, who hasn't at this point? We may be multiverse crazy right now, but dimension transportation is nothing new for the webhead and his fellow spider friends.
I'm from another dimension. I mean, another dimension.
When it came time for the original Spider-Verse comics, Spidey UK had acquired a dimensional travel talisman, which allowed him and any of his spider-blooded friends safe passageway among the web of life and destiny, which acts as both a portal to every possible reality and also plays into how every wall crawler earned their powers. Yeah, you know what? I'll just take the explanation that Peter botched Doctor Strange's spell for the MCU version of this power. It's a heck of a lot more simple. As it turns out, it's not just the bite of the radioactive spider that manifested itself in Peter's abilities. The radioactivity granted Peter full-time radiation immunization. Step aside, Hulk, Spidey can walk amid gamma radiation with relative ease. It's a fairly obscure perk, but when you're dealing with all sorts of doctor villains, it comes in handy from time to time. Most recently, Peter fought the villain X-Ray, who ended up blasting him with a deadly dose of radiation. He ended up surviving the radiation poisoning, but who else can say they've done that? Quick side note, while it can be considered a power, his radioactive blood actually ended up giving MJ cancer, which led to her death in Spider-Man Reign. Win some and lose some. That's just classic Parker luck. As a young lad, I experienced some changes.
Change? Yeah. Big change.
My voice kept cracking, I got slightly taller, not quite 6 feet, but enough. And oh god, my hair. My hair was everywhere. Peter Parker went through even stranger changes as a teenager. Unlike most men, his hair kept growing until he turned into a vicious arachnid known as Man Spider. One of the powers gained through this transformation is acid spit. This title is fairly descriptive as when he spits, it's acid. Step aside, Lloyd Kaufman, it looks like there's a new Toxic Avenger in town. For what it's worth, I too thought I was spitting some acidic flows as a teen, but I was just badly rapping to Eminem. Remember that one scene in Amazing Spider-Man 1 where Peter comes home and seems high out of his mind?
That's a fly, Peter.
Well, that's lifted right out of the comic books with Peter's insane metabolism. The main perk to this power is a tolerance to really anything poisonous. In Kraven's Last Hunt, Peter even manages to survive a shot from a tranquilizer dart. Although it is important to note while his body was able to withstand the shot, it made him entirely immobile, so there is still some effectiveness to poison. A poison that does all but nothing to Peter? Alcohol? Doctor Strange must be tired of all the house calls Peter makes to get some of that sorcerer brew. Writer Bill Mantlo looked at Peter's already OP moveset and laughed. Super strength, spider sense, wall crawling. You wanted more? He ended up creating a cosmic Spider-Man who is pretty much a god. Surging with the powers of the Enigma Force, Spidey tapped into the Uni-Power, allowing him to literally control matter, which allows him to do pretty much anything. That is almost as cool as when he used his powers to hit Grey Hulk off the face of the Earth. Add in the fact that he also has hyperspace travel, invulnerability, and cosmic senses, and you have a being that can top Superman at his best. There was a period of time long before Avengers Infinity War where Spider-Man was considered dead to the general public. No, not the time where Doc Ock took over his brain, a little bit before that. Instead of dying at the hands, or rather snap of Thanos, this death followed Peter Parker ripping the jugular out of a vampire-like foe with nothing but his fangs. That's right, I said fangs. And my mom tried telling me comics were kids' picture books.
Where are all my comic books?
Oh, those dreadful things.
I gave those away.
To heal himself following his seeming death after the fight, his body turns into a cocoon as he recharges. This may seem a tad bit strange, but just wait till you find out the other powers he gains during this comic run. One of the powers that the MCU has shied away from pretty much entirely is the heroes talking to the critters that influence their name. Falcon doesn't speak to an actual falcon called Red Wing. Ant-Man has strayed away from befriending ants after the tragic loss of Anthony, and Tom Holland has yet to have an intellectual conversation regarding physics with a spider. I kind of see him being like a Dr. Phil for the spider community. Come on, Pete, like you say, with great power comes great responsibility, and with a cluster of spiders comes a web of drama. It's never outright spotlighted in any of the films, but did you ever wonder how Tobey took beating after beating from the Goblin? How Andrew was able to be a conduit to the overcharge of Electro? That's superhuman healing at play. It's not quite as efficient as what Wolverine has got going on, but it definitely works enough to keep Spidey on his feet no matter how hard he gets hit. In X-Men Origins Wolverine, we see an interesting interpretation of Deadpool, who really just isn't Deadpool. In fact, he's more like Spider-Man than the Merc with a mouth. Those Wolverine-esque claws are canonically a power that Spidey has under extreme distress. They have mainly only been used in the other storyline and also inject venom into his foes. We haven't seen them since, but they were the catalyst for the Iron Spider's Waldos. That's right, those tendrils actually have a name. Tony Stark thought of everything. Speaking of the Iron Spider suit, Spider-Man fans were introduced to the power of invisibility through Miles Into the Spider-Verse, but that power actually had its humble beginnings as a power-up from the Iron Spider suit in Civil War. Spider-Man is already naturally stealthy. Pair that with his spider sense and he's already practically invisible to the criminals of New York.
Okay, what the hell is that?
But this suit canonized it. People often complain of Tom being Iron Boy Jr. in the MCU, with a common note that he has way too much suit-aided abilities, but his Iron Spidey suit is actually nerfed compared to what we see in the comic run of Civil War. Along with the Waldos that come with the suit is enhanced gliding abilities and bulletproof armor. One of the clones of Peter, Kaine, has an ability dubbed the Mark of Kaine. Remember in Inglourious Bastards where the soldiers branded the Nazis with a big old swastika to warn Hitler who's coming? Kaine has a similar tactic where he literally burns a mark into his foes. Kaine's the edgy Spider-Man, if you haven't noticed yet. It's definitely theatrical, but we gotta admit, it has its uses. While it's not 100% certain that Peter has the same ability, he does do a similar move to Green Goblin where he uses his wall-crawling adhesiveness to rip off some of Norman's face. Even against his greatest foe, Spidey realized that this was a little bit overkill, but he still does it a couple more times in the following years. Shifting gears from powers and into weaknesses, did you know that Spider-Man has his own version of Kryptonite?
Is that a real knife? Yes, it's a real knife. My weakness, it's small knives. Just let me go. Anything but knives!
Although instead of being an extremely rare, otherworldly object, it's just ethyl chloride. That's right, for the low price of like $40 at your local drugstore, you can completely drain the spider powers from Peter Parker. For those of you that are like, why ethyl chloride? Turns out it's a common agent in pesticides, so it's quite literally something that would be powerful enough to kill a spider. If items that could kill a spider can utterly destroy the webhead, J. Jonah has been holding the key to killing Spider-Man after all these years. Ah, get away from me, big roll of newspaper! This one is a little more well known, but it's been so seldomly explored that I think it's worth bringing up. In addition to all the super-esque powers, Peter received from the bite was super speed.
This sucks.
He may not be as fast as Superman, but his quick movements have proven life-saving time and time again. It's come useful in combination with his spider sense to dodge Rhino's charge. It allows him to keep up with his web slinging, and most importantly, it always looks so silly when it happens on film. Look at Tobey go! Run, Tobey, run! Peter Parker may be broke, but to quote Kanye, his suit bespoke. Both the Iron Spidey and symbiote suit offers the ability to change form into anything Peter desires, whether that be another classic suit or just plain old dress attire. That's right, that scene in Spider-Man 3 where Tobey enters the suit store, that's just a flex. To be fair, earning a freelance wage while living in New York,
Jameson pays me a fair wage. If it was 1961, he paid me a fair wage.
this could be Peter's most cost-saving ability. It's a shame that he rarely ever uses any of the suits that activates it. Alright, I know this one is cheating because it's way more tech than it is a power, but I can never pass up the opportunity to talk about the Spider-Mobile. So why exactly does a super nimble, acrobatic-enhanced, wall-sticking, web-slinging man need a car for? Because why not? This thing is so iconic, or just really good at selling toys, that it even came back around during Peter's time with Parker Industries. The Thanos Copter, Spider-Mobile, Hawkeye Sky Cycle, I see a Cars-inspired animated Disney Plus show in the cards. One power that's been faithfully adapted time and time again is Spidey's super strength. We've seen him lift buildings, stop a train, even hold together the Staten Island ferry. What hasn't been shown just yet is how well he pulls his punches. The dude literally yeeted Scorpion's jaw clean off once. Well, that was Doc Ock and Peter Parker's body, but that's a whole thing for another time.